The town of Berlin. Country charm at the center of Connecticut.
Okay, let's call this meeting to order. Town Council meeting July 5th, 2016, called to order. Set Pledge of Allegiance, please. Stand for the pledge. Pledge of allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, roll call.
Councilor Campanelli?
Here.
Councilor Evans?
Here.
Mayor Krasinski?
Here.
Councilor Councilor Lodi?
Debbie?
You know what? I was going with deputy.
Oh, okay.
Sorry about that.
Council Deputy.
Councilor Paynessa?
Here.
Councilor Rachette? Councilor Rosso?
Here.
Thank you. You have 4 minutes.
All right, thank you. First we'll have our audience of citizens. Is there anyone that...
There is one person saying.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, we have Scott Trevethian. If you'd like to... How you doing, Scott? If you could step up to the mic, just state your name and address for the record.
Hi, Scott Trevethan, Bruce's nephew.
Oh, okay, okay.
I'm here to talk about the high school tennis courts and the basketball courts. Without getting into great detail, there's a tremendous amount of frustration that this hasn't been completed. The men's and women's tennis teams this year had to complete 100% of their matches on the road. A number of citizens who use the basketball courts weren't able to. It was my understanding that this was to be done last year, and it wasn't. I'm simply sharing on behalf of many people, many voices. This needs to get addressed. It shouldn't be a day 2, a day 3, or a day 4 item. This needs to be priority 1, not to be pushed along, pushed back. I'm a lifelong resident. I never come to these meetings, normally because I get tired of the politics. My uncle was on this council. My uncle was going to come here tonight, but I think I will have a little bit more decorum than he would have had. He is as frustrated as I am, and I think I represent no less than 100 to 150 people that regularly use the facility. Long story short, I'm appealing to you guys to get this through and to get it done this fall. This isn't something that can be pushed into October and November, because if we don't start it by August, it won't happen for next year. Our kids will miss a second season. Just to give you a little idea, both teams qualified for states. A couple of kids have done, including my son, something that never has been done in the high school before, and no one got to see it. Simply put, I'm appealing. This shouldn't get pushed back any longer. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Appreciate that. Comments? And for the record, we did, we put it in the budget for this year, so it's on the agenda tonight, and then it will go to, we'll go to bonding, and I don't know what the time frame is to build these things, but we have some questions about it, I think, but it is moving forward, right?
If we could get it done the next couple of meetings, we can get the bids out and get it started by the end of August, beginning of September, so that the construction, as long as it gets done, Jack Healy is also here, he's helping with some of the bid specs, before the frost, then at least for the spring season, the tennis courts will be ready, as well as the basketball courts.
Good. Yeah, so it is moving forward. But we'll talk about it a little bit more when we get to the agenda item. So if you want to stick around or go, whatever you'd like, but we will talk about it some more. Okay. Anybody else from the public? Hearing none, I will don't see any hands. I will close that portion of the meeting and move on to our meeting agenda, starting with our consent agenda. I take it, all the councilors have read the consent agenda. And if there's, we'll take a motion.
Okay, I'll make a motion to accept the 6 topics in the consent agenda tonight as written.
Okay, second on that?
Second.
Any discussion on any of the topics? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries, thank you. Okay, now we'll move to we have a public hearing tonight So at, I guess, 7:05, call to order this, I convene the public hearing for the $100,000 amendment to the $700,000 emergency preparedness ordinance appropriation and bond ordinance. The ordinance, which is the subject of this public hearing, is available to the public and may be obtained at this meeting from the town clerk. Need a motion and a second to read the title only of the ordinance as proposed to be amended and to waive the reading of the remainder of the ordinance, incorporating its full text into the minutes of this meeting. So if I need a motion,
Okay. A motion, right here, right?
yeah.
An ordinance amending and an ordinance appropriating $700,000 for the town of Berlin emergency preparedness and authorizing the issue of $700,000 of bonds of the town to meet said appropriation and pending the issuance thereof, the making of temporary borrowings for such purpose.
Okay, is there a second on that?
Second. Mayor, I thought, just
Public notice?
point of clarification, did you say 800,000 or 700,000 in bonds?
It's 700,000 amendment to $700,000. That's what.
And authorizing 800,000 or something?
Wait a minute, this is wrong.
Okay.
Doesn't sound
Okay.
right.
So
This is another one. This is for the next one. I'm sorry, that's my fault.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, because further down it
Call it
does,
now,
it is a, yeah, I see that.
Yeah,
Okay.
this is for, no, this is a, wait a minute.
You know, you have 7 in the top part, Kate.
No,
and then
this is right, because it
Okay.
is 700 right
Okay.
now. I apologize. It is 700 right now. It is
Gonna
correct.
be 8. It's gonna be
And
8.
it's going to move, we're appropriating another 100,000, and eventually it will be the
It'll be 8.
So it is correct.
Okay.
Okay.
Got it.
Second, Mayor.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion passes. And now this is a public hearing. Well,
Correct.
you have to, you're gonna, do you read the legal notice, or do you need to read that?
Maybe what I should do is, let me just read the amendment.
Yeah, okay.
Is that good?
Yeah.
The purpose of the amendment is to increase the appropriation and the bond authorization by $100,000 from $700,000 to $800,000, and to ratify, confirm, and adopt all prior authorizations and ordinances in connection therewith.
Okay, great, thank you.
All right.
Okay, so this is a public hearing. If there's any comments from the public, speak now. Whoever hold your peace. Seeing none. Any comments from town council members? No? Okay, so I will call the public hearing on the $100,000 amendment to the $700,000 emergency preparedness bond ordinance closed.
Okay.
And we will now move on to new business. Close at 7:09, I guess. I got that time.
Thank you.
All right, so item 1, Denise.
Yes, this is the ordinance regarding the $350,000 for the Berlin High School emergency generator. This was the subject of a public hearing at our last council meeting, and this is to put in the full generator at the high school, as we had discussed during the budget time, that hopefully with the addition of the generator at the high school, we may be able to use more of the building during any kinds of hurricanes or events, and also perhaps to use the school as our shelter.
Okay, great, thanks. Yeah, we had the public hearing last time, so we understand what's going on here, so I take a motion on this.
Sure. Move to adopt an ordinance appropriating $350,000 for the Berlin High School emergency generator and authorizing the issuance of $350,000 bonds to the town to meet said appropriation and pending the issuance thereof, the making of temporary borrowings for such purpose.
Thank you. Second on that?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Number 2.
As was previously discussed, this is part of the debt issuance plan for the 2016-17 fiscal year, wherein the town council had approved the purchase of the generator for $350,000. This will be for an 800 kW generator that will support the full operation of the entire building. In order to expedite, we are using the National Joint Powers Alliance bid contract, wherein we were able to get the generator directly from the vendor as opposed to having a middleman or a wholesaler in between. So we are going to realize a savings, and the contract is an amount not to exceed $221,947.59.
Okay, thanks. Okay, motion on this?
Okay. Move to utilize the National Joint Powers Alliance bid contract number 080613-CAT and purchase one 800 kilowatt Caterpillar diesel generator and require accessories from H.O. Penn Machinery Company in an amount of $211,378.59, and to include a 5% contingency of $10,569 to bring the total contract value to an amount not to exceed $221,947.59.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second on that?
Second.
Any discussion? Yes.
Mayor, just had a question for Mr. Healy on this.
Okay.
In your experience on this procurement of equipment, where have you seen the contingency needed? Here we're selected 5%. I've seen other contingencies of 10 and even somewhat less than that. What's the potential or the possibility of this particular contingency?
Contingency there is we're installing at the high school. We've had it engineered and designed by, the architect engineering firm. So the wiring and most of the wiring has been gone through. So probably the contingency at this point can be less than normally, which you normally would ascribe to something. But again, as you get into a project like this, there could be additional wiring or switches that need to be done. But I think we're comfortable with the 5%.
Okay, so it has to do more with changes on site. It's not adding different widgets or different alarms or bells or whistles to the equipment.
No. The contingency would be actually an installation. The unit itself, you buy it. It's I don't want to call it an off-the-shelf, but they're standard pieces of equipment that you would use for this type of application.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks. Don't go too far. With the tennis course next, all right. Just kidding. Any other questions? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Number 3, Denise.
Okay, as council may or may not recall, back in November of 2014, the council had referred the statement of need for the renovation and reconstruction of the basketball and tennis courts at the high school to the Public Building Commission for inclusion, if possible, in the renovate as new project on the high school. This looked like it might have some possibility because they were running rather well as far as timing and even financially. But as the year has progressed, staff became a little concerned that timing, once again, may be everything, because even though they're running well with the completion of the building and also with their finances, by the time everything is tied up for them to know whether or not they have funds left over, may be another year. And as you had heard from the audience of citizens, we already had to not use the tennis courts at all during the school's tennis season, because to even patch them this year would have cost upwards of, I think we got some quotes around $75,000 or $80,000, which would have been a little much based on the fact that we really want to replace them. I think the worst thing that could happen would be to have a brand new, beautiful school and have the courts in the condition that they presently are in. So staff began to get some ideas and talk internally to see what we could do to speed up the process and at least get these done by next spring, as I had said earlier. After the budget was adopted in May and council had seemed willing to go forward with the funding for this construction process, it was determined through a process that post-tension concrete would be better than the typical asphalt that was there. This was based on some work that Jim Capodice had done, as well as Jack Healy and Adam Tulin. They all worked together with Art Volts, and they had companies come down, and I think Jack is prepared to discuss if there are some questions. Right now, what we need is to set the public hearing on this authorization. But if there are questions that come up now, as well as at the time of the public hearing, Jack is here prepared to answer any of the questions. The total cost is a little bit more than what had been foreseen at the budget time, because I think we estimated about $385,000, where the post-tension concrete, because it's a better product and it's a little more costly, but it seems to be where a lot of the other towns are moving because it will last longer, will cost in the area of about $550,000, including some of the bonding costs.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion on this?
I move to authorize the town manager to retain the services of Joseph Fossey LLC to prepare bond authorization documents for the bid documents, purchase, installation, and other related costs for the Berlin High School tennis and basketball courts, and to authorize the town manager to schedule and advertise for July 19th, 2016 at 7 p.m. to hold a public hearing on an ordinance entitled An Ordinance Appropriating $550,000 for the Berlin High School tennis and basketball courts, and to authorize the issue of $550,000 bonds of the town to meet said appropriation, and pending the issuance thereof, the making of temporary borings for such purpose.
Okay, second on that?
Second.
For discussion. Some discussion on this. I'll start off. I obviously have a question. Denise, you alluded to it with the, we had approved a certain cost. Want to get this thing going, but Jack, maybe if you could come up and just tell us about the fairly significant increase from what I see. I understand, maybe it's a better method, but if you could enlighten us.
Yeah, when we started getting involved, we talked about different methods of fixing the courts. There's a standard method of putting asphalt down. The courts are in poor condition, as everyone knows. They've got cracks going through them. They've separated. Paving over them is not an option. When the situation is as they are now, you'd have to remove that. I suspect that there's a drainage probably underneath there. You probably need to have to remove some of the material underneath it. Start with new processed stone. We talked last time, Charlie, about maybe putting some mesh down, or some, in that vein, to try to give it a good base, put drainage down. I've done this before for other towns. That you'd have to, if you're going to do it, you have to do it right. You have to put down drainage. Now you're putting pipes in, drainage pipes probably every 6 to 10 feet apart to remove the water. Put processed stone down, put the fabric down, and put new pavement down and fencing. Jim Capodice started talking to us in a meeting about doing post-tension concrete. It's a method that we use for building bridges. It's an older method. I wasn't familiar with it as far as using it. Tennis courts and recreation, we've used it. I built a couple of bridges using post-tension concrete. We started looking at it. The town of Bristol just sent out the design build for theirs. I guess it was Old Lyme had done that. A friend of mine who used to work for me, he's at Lewis Mills High School, Burlington. They've done it like 2 or 3 years ago. He loves it. He said it was the best thing he did. He didn't go with putting the asphalt down. My concern was, when I started going into it, that I was concerned about, again, the water being under the asphalt. Is it going to move? Are we going to have a problem with it? I've done some research on it, talked with some of the installers, talked to Dave about it, went over and visited their courts. In the instances that I've seen, they have not removed the old asphalt. They put this right over the old asphalt. So the process is a little faster that way. You don't have to go through the whole grinding and drainage and thing. You can actually place this over. Because it's the concrete, the post-tension concrete's more expensive, that's the increase for price. Longevity, from what the documentation is, the engineering information is that it's longer lasting, less problem with cracking. Asphalt, you have to do, no matter who you have installed, they're going to tell you need to do inspections regularly. You have to make sure the surface, the paint is in good condition, so that you don't, if you keep the tennis courts in good condition, you should be doing inspection every year, every other year, and make sure the surface is constantly being resurfaced and sealed so that you don't get cracking in them. The ones I did in Litchfield, they had to do, before I left, we would do inspections, we'd have them sealed on a regular basis. The same technology for basketball courts. If you don't maintain them, if you don't seal the surface, the water gets underneath them, it does provide cracking. It does start to crack. And again, you under the surface, you need to make sure you have proper drainage and proper construction. After discussion, that's why we decided to opt for going with the post-tension concrete.
I should
Now-
also,
Go
I
ahead.
should also point out that the difference would be made up with LoSiP funds rather than, we'd still have to authorize the full amount of the project, but we'd only be borrowing still the 385 or roughly whatever was talked about during the discussions with the budget. The difference, Jim Wren was able to confirm with the state that the difference could be made up with LoSiP funds, so.
If we have
would-
any, right?
We do.
We do. Okay. Just to follow up on that, you said that it's a drainage issue there, most likely.
Probably.
So-
I mean, we have
right,
we,
we don't
talked
know.
about
Yeah, we don't know.
going over and taking borings and things, but
Yeah.
when we started talking with the post-tension concrete, we opted not to do the borings.
Okay.
Many times in this situation, we see the road start to, or if you look at a road or asphalt surface,
yeah.
it's drainage, and so that area is probably wet. Your soil structure here in Berlin is clay. You have water. It wouldn't be unusual to suspect that's a problem.
So, just following that forward, so $385,000, if we went and we found out there were some drainage issues, would that add to that $385,000 or not, or is that included in it? I'm just curious.
My discussion with everyone who does this says you don't need to, at this point, that is not an issue in this type of engineered system. You don't have to worry about that.
With the new tension?
Yeah, because we'd
concrete.
actually, all we do, Mayor, is
Yeah.
they would come in and put a frame around that, and they would they would construct the new courts over top of the old courts.
Right.
They will not remove the old courts. That's
But if
usually
there's a
something-
drainage problem, there's a drainage problem. It won't affect them.
They said it won't affect them.
But, so forget the new method for a minute. So with the 385 and the old method, just for my education, but we would look for a drainage issue before we repave them.
Yeah. Oh,
Would
yeah.
that add to the $385,000 cost?
I didn't have that estimate.
Okay.
It probably would, depending on how much you need to, what you have to remove, what you have to put in.
Okay.
We didn't do any studies, so I couldn't tell you what the condition of soil under the tennis courts is.
Okay. Yes.
Question. You indicated that with the new method, it will last longer than with the old method. Do we have any idea how much longer?
The asphalt courts, I don't know how long these have lasted. They can last 10, 15. A lot of it has to do, again, with the maintenance you put on them, the subsoil and things like that. They can last 15 years, 10 years, 15 years is probably a good, if you get outstanding performance, you may get 20, but with roads, you just tend with asphalt, you don't see that.
Okay. So with the concrete, you think maybe 20 years or?
That's what the data says. I mean, it's used for bridges, and it's had very good results. And I did a bridge 2 years ago with post-tension concrete, or actually, a couple of them.
Okay. All right, cool.
Yes, Charlie.
The post-tension concrete's gonna have an added depth to the court then, right? We're
Yeah, you pour it right on top, Charlie. So it's going to be whatever the thickness of the concrete. It's going
Right.
to be up top of the court.
And then there'll be rebars and so forth in it.
Yeah. And what they do, they put the cable through, you pour it, and then you start hydraulically. You
Yeah.
basically
Pull it tight.
squeeze them together until you get like 40,000 psi on the concrete.
So do you think this thing's gonna float on whatever the problem is underneath?
Yeah, that's what the information says. It basically it floats. Now I've done other structures where I've had it float, and I did when in private industry I used to make concrete structures where I would put different types of containment vessels for different tanks,
Yeah.
and I would float that. I would do that. I would float it on top, and I very rarely, as long as you have the right amount of rebar and everything in there, I very rarely had any problem with cracking.
How thick is this gonna be?
I think right now I'm looking at it. It's going to be 6 inches thick.
And then, does this cost include the grade changes beyond the court then? We're gonna have to add to the lawn or raise the sidewalks going to the court, that kind of thing? Or is that,
Yeah, it should. Yeah.
that should cover all of that?
Okay, just, I know you're raising your hand, but next, we're having a public hearing, so if you, welcome you to come back and speak at that time, and, you know, we're gonna really take testimony then from anyone that wants to speak, and if we have some more questions at that time, we'll continue. So the vote will be in another couple of weeks as far as voting this forward, just trying to get some information tonight.
The only reason I bring it up is I'm a former tennis professional. Asphalt courts last on average 15 years.
Okay.
The current method is 25 to 30.
Okay. Good, so, yeah, well, hopefully you come
Twice the
and
use for less than twice the money.
talk at the public hearing too, if you want to come back and visit us, and I know you like visiting us, so, yeah. Yes, Dave?
Mayor, just a question on the materials. So there's the concrete. Is there anything overlaid on top of the concrete, or are they plain on concrete?
So you have a surface, I guess you would call it a paint that we put over top of it. And as the gentleman said, you have to have this done before a certain time. If we start getting into September, start getting a temperature drop, this will not adhere. What you'll have is all of a sudden it starts picking up. So you have the surfacing that you put on over afterwards, and that has to be put down. I believe that the literature says you have to have nights that don't go below 55, 60 degrees during the adhesion. Now, one time, and I did, just unfortunately, when you do projects over your life, you do once in a while, you push something. We tried to push it one time, and the contractor made good, but we did have a problem where the paint that we put down did fail because the temperatures dropped when they were putting it down. So you need to follow the manufacturer's recommendations and put it down when it's above 55, 60 degrees at night. So.
Yeah, you're right about that. You probably need 30 days for the concrete to cure before the coatings go down. So,
Yeah, we're in a tight time schedule on this.
Yeah.
Okay, any other?
Another question, maybe
Yes.
for the town manager. The LoCIP funds, what validation do we have of their amount and their availability?
Ms. Duran has an email confirmation from the woman that he deals with at the state, so.
Okay, but we don't know the specific amount. It depends on the actual project itself.
It
and
was
how
on the
much
project himself. I do think he has some figures, though, as well, because, and I apologize, he's on vacation, so I don't have that information, but I will have it for the public hearing.
That would be great. I think that would be real helpful at that time to have those figures.
Okay. Anything else? Are we good? All right, so we have a motion on the floor to send this to public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so moved. Thank you. Thanks. Okay, number 4, Denise, if you would.
Okay, this is, each year, as the nursing department prepares its budget, they base it on the services that they believe that are going to be needed by the patients on the following year. Forecasts sometimes vary because of the needs of the clientele each year. This year, they had the demand for physical therapy services and health aid services higher than expected. What was lower were some of the speech therapy and occupational therapist account. So fortunately, the projected shortfall of $30,000 in the health aids and $16,000 in physical therapy can be made up from the speech therapist account, occupational therapist account, so that they would equal out within their department.
Okay, great. Motion on this?
Okay, move to transfer $30,000 from the nurse's salary account, $12,000 from the speech therapist account, and $4,000 from the occupational therapist account as follows: $16,000 to the physical therapy account and $30,000 to the health aids account.
Okay, second on this?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Number 5.
This year in the police vehicles account, there was a shortage due to new cruiser equipment that could not be reused or refitted into some of the others due to some staffing shortages as well at the town garage. There are additional funds in the police personnel department from workers' compensation and not filling all of the positions for the full year. $40,000 of the surplus that exists in the personnel account can be transferred to cover the police vehicle shortage in the vehicles account.
Okay, great, thanks. Motion on this?
Sure. Move to approve the transfer of $40,000 from the police personnel account to the police vehicles account.
Second?
Second.
I just have for discussion, I have just a question, really, the staffing shortages at the town garage, what's that about?
We have one or two, Jim is laughing. We have
Jim? You wanna
one or
co-
two
Oh,
people
whatever.
that have been out on
Okay.
workers' compensation. We have had a variety, not all. We have one individual who works only part-time. He was injured at his other job, so while he wasn't on our payroll per se, he couldn't work. There were 2 others during the year that I'm aware of at different times for out on workers' comp. Jim can certainly discuss. I know he's had some struggles at the town
Okay.
garage.
Which is obviously causing
Some of the issues.
some of
yes.
the additional expenses.
Currently, out of 6 people, 6 mechanics, it's actually 5.5. I have one out with shoulder surgery, one out for back surgery, and one that had a back injury at another job that couldn't work here. So out of the 6, out of the 5.5, I actually have 3. Now, taking into account that they all have vacation time that they have to use by a certain amount of time, it puts you in a bind. Currently, there's 2 mechanics out of the 5.5 that'll work until July 11th. Then I'll come back with 3 mechanics, and I'm out looking for some temporary help to fill in. It's just the way it drawed up.
It happens. So obviously, the equipment, like for the PD's
Well,
perspective.
obviously, what we do is,
Pull it.
like any time, we prioritize what
Yeah.
we're going to do. So emergency vehicles such as police and fire would get higher priorities. And then vehicles that are currently in use, such as your mowers, ball groomers, paving equipment, that'd be the next one. And we put to the rear some of our general maintenance that we would start for the next season. Luckily, going into this little area, we don't start snow equipment until August. So once we get to August and we start bringing in all the snow equipment and beginning the snow equipment, I know that's a bad word, but it is right around the corner, then it's going to start adding up even further.
And you're trying to get some temporary help to alleviate.
I talked to one today. I have another conversation with another one tomorrow to bring in some people. If I can bring in some certified people and ASC certifications, then I can have them doing some of the routine work, the brake inspections, the oil changes and things like that. And then I'll have the other people, the other mechanics doing the heavier equipment that needs to be done.
I take it these guys with their surgery won't be back anytime soon, or?
One is indefinite. We don't know when he's coming back, if he's coming back, and the other one is just had shoulder surgery, and they're telling us it's going to be 3 months.
Okay, that was, okay, great. All right, that was my question. Anybody, other questions?
Yeah, Mayor.
Yes.
Question on the summary item indicates that the short of the funds needed for the purposes doesn't give a specific period of time. Are we short, and this was prepared June 20th, so are we short from, and this isn't necessary, yeah, Jim, he can sit down, but is this from the period to the new fiscal year, or is this over both the fiscal year that just ended and the new fiscal year that started?
Just the fiscal year that just ended. There are still funds that are available or still left in the police department personnel account still above and beyond the 40,000 that's being transferred that will, if there are no other shortages found either in the police department's accounts or others, will revert back to the general fund at the end of, well, it is the end, it's July, so they'll revert back as soon as all of the reconciliations are completed this month or next month.
Okay. So, and how much of this is for equipment? How much of it is it for labor? Do we have that breakdown?
No, I don't believe we do.
I do not have that breakdown as far as what is for equipment or labor, but as Mr. Simons explained, if we wait until winter, snow equipment kind of takes priority rather than getting a new car outfitted. And as he also indicated, the temporary help he has won't have the expertise to do the electronics that is required for the cruiser. So that's why we send it out to a vendor.
I just have a quick question. Is this for work that's already been scheduled, already done, we've started and can't finish?
These
kind
are
of a
for,
thing?
we have a rotation schedule as
Yeah.
far as replacing our cruisers. When one cruiser goes offline, a new one obviously has to be outfitted. When we are transferring some of the equipment, we have the old Crown Victorias, now we're going into Tauruses. We have, I think, 3 Crown Vics remaining right now. So that's why some of the equipment is not compatible. Also, because of the size of the cruisers, the officers are cramped in the Taurus, so we're trying to go more towards the Explorer-sized vehicle. With all the equipment that we carry now, it's a good idea anyways, especially if you have to carry a prisoner in the back seat.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other question? Yeah.
Are there any other needs out there that are similar to this that have been identified within the police department or other departments? I think this should only really be applied to the police department. So are there any other priorities out there that are suffering similar to this that these funds could be utilized for, that's a competing need?
The funds that we're asking to carry over,
Yeah.
those funds in particular,
Mm-hmm.
not at this point there isn't something that's competing for it. You know, obviously when we do cars, we do them out to bid, and hopefully the bids come in as we projected. But if the bids were higher, then that's going to eat away at some of those funds.
Because we didn't give you everything that you had asked for during the budget, so I just...
Right.
And you also had received a free car that's not quite free.
Right.
And I don't know where that plays into this.
Well, that car actually was received, but the markings and everything are rather unique on it, so it doesn't really blend in with the fleet. It's a used car, so it's going to be necessary to replace that car sooner than we anticipated.
It's a used car?
Yeah.
Really?
It was.
Wow, what's up with that?
I just didn't know, 20,000 is 40,000, we gotta fix the one that had the funny decals on
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, well, we're not going to replace all those decals. We'll just live with it. But the advantage to the vehicle account is that it rolls over from one year to the next, so it gives us some flexibility. It actually gives council flexibility if we have some funds left over for next year's budget. As you go forward, you can say, all right, you didn't need to use all of that, so we're going to cut a car out of you, but we know you have enough in your savings to replace that car.
Also, as time goes on from April until the end of each fiscal year, generally, each department head with finance looks at their budgets and knows where there may be some potential shortfalls or needs that maybe had been cut or whatever, and if they're running ahead, their monies will be used first for their own purposes if necessary. If the police had identified other needs, or, like the nurses tend to use their own funds if they have any potential shortfalls first, and then we look to other departments. So the chief would not be missing any important items if he had a overage in some of his accounts. He'd make sure that those got taken care of first. So right now, it's pretty safe to assume or to know that most of the shortfalls in any of the chief's accounts have been taken care of first before these, if you follow what I mean.
I do. I just don't want in our next meeting to have something that says, okay, well, I'd like to have all of those in front of me, and we're at the end of the fiscal year, so we should have a pretty good idea where we're at with that. So I don't want any surprises on this. The other way to look at it is capital non-recurring is that we shouldn't look at it as little savings accounts here and there where we carry these over. It should be some designated amounts. If we end up only using 30,000 of that, there's 10,000 of that needs to be understood. So that could potentially go into next year's fiscal budget as we consider things, instead of whatever the account is, if it's 100,000, and that, you're going to use 10,000 from this capital non-recurring that remains. So-
Well, it's similar to last year. Last year, we had the same surplus, and we rolled it into the building commission so they could hire a consultant to that. So there are projects that we look at. If you're asking me for projects, I'll give you a couple of more. But we try to, like the town manager said, we prioritize them, and this would be the priority at this point in time.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Chief. Motion on the floor, any other questions? All right, motion on the floor, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved, thank you. Number 6, I'm sorry, 6.
Okay, this is going forward in the new fiscal year's budget, and the Berlin Peck Library, as council knows, belongs to the Connecticut Library Consortium. This is a group of members, 800 strong, that can leverage marketing power to get discounts for things such as their books, media, databases, licensing. In fact, Helen Malinka serves on the board of the consortium, so she is well aware of some of the value that can be obtained from such a group. She is asking to have all of the various purchase orders, including some that are under the $10,000 threshold, but in the interests of transparency, she put all of the different things that are being purchased out of the consortium so that the council is aware of everything. So those are the purchase orders that need to be approved.
Okay, great. Motion on this?
Kate, do I have to read all these? Or-
Take the glasses off.
I would just say, and see, attached to the minutes is a listing.
There you go.
Nice.
Much better.
Move to approve
Oh,
purchase
thank you.
orders for the following vendors due to the library's participation in the Connecticut Library Consortium and in the Library Connection, Inc., as the best discounts have already been provided. This is in the best interest of the town. There's a list of things here, and I came to a total of $151,800. Is that correct? I did it quick, so.
I'm not sure. I
Okay.
didn't ask
I
them.
didn't total
Looks
them
pretty
either,
close.
Sorry,
Yeah.
you're good.
Okay, good. Second on that?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Number 7. Now we're at number 7.
Okay, as part of the Main Street Streetscape project, there were decorative streetlights that were installed. They were installed as part of Deming Park, done by the donation with the McCacci family. And as part of the original Main Street Streetscape plan, 4 decorative lights were to be installed along the public sidewalk adjacent to the park. Originally, we did not think that there were going to be enough funds to fund them. While the park was being renovated, the McCacci family did install the bases for the 4 additional decorative lights so that if there was an opportunity to put the lights in, that they would be able to do so. We received proposals, and there are 4 additional streetlights for a total cost of $11,160. There are funds in the amount of $162,000 from the BRR FOC unwinding, so to speak, or rebate that can be used to fund these lights. And staff is requesting an appropriation of $11,160 to fund the payment of the 4 additional streetlights adjacent to Deming Park.
Okay, thanks. Motion on this?
Move to appropriate $11,160 to the other receipts revenue account and transfers to other funds expenditure account to fund the purchase and installation of 4 additional decorative streetlights adjacent to Deming Park.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion on this?
And
Yes,
I
Dave.
just had a question on the rebate. How much remains after utilizing 11,000 of that? Do we know that amount?
I believe there is still a substantial amount. I think it's in the $90,000, but I'll have to get that figure. I thought of that as I was reading it myself, so I can get that for you tomorrow.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Okay, number 8.
I'm looking at Chris. Luke's Consulting Engineers LLC is the town's consultant for the Main Street streetscape project nearing its completion. Town council had previously authorized contracts with Luke's for services which included the design of the project, assisting with the bidding, and providing some services in the construction. Town staff needed to request additional services from Luke's to make additional design changes due to some issues in front of the YMCA. The existing sidewalks at that location were not ADA compliant, so they had to be made ADA compliant. Staff is requesting authorization for me to enter into a contract amendment with Luke's Consulting Engineers LLC to provide these additional consulting engineering services for a fee not to exceed $4,800. These funds would be taken from the change order portion of the original contract.
Okay, thanks. Motion on this?
Okay. Move to authorize the town manager to enter into a contract amendment with Luke's Consulting Engineers LLC account for an amount not to exceed $4,800 to provide additional engineering design services related to the Main Street streetscape project, with funds to be taken from funds previously authorized for construction change orders for the project.
Second? on this?
Second.
Discussion, questions? I just have I'll start off, and I'll ask this question. Just, so we're changing the sidewalk, but we didn't, yeah, Chris, maybe you can, we didn't, I take it we didn't work on this part of the sidewalk, or we don't have to rip up what we just did, right?
No, there's
No.
a section right now that there needs to be made some modifications on it, that we're gonna be changing the pitch. Part of it is, as well, is there's a gas line underneath that needs to be moved, which is part of the engineering. So as part of this, a little bit more work for the $4,800. So that's kind of why we had to go above and beyond on this for these couple of things.
Okay, but it's not, we don't have to rip up anything we've already
No, I don't think
done.
they're gonna be ripping. I think they're gonna modify it slightly
Modify.
towards the roadside.
I gotcha.
So.
Okay. Yes, Charlie?
Are the engineers surprised that they needed a handicap accessible corner? Is this a new idea, or?
No, I don't think they realized the pitch was as much as it was. I don't think it was the fact they didn't realize that. I think
The
they didn't-
engineers didn't realize what the pitch was gonna be?
I don't know, to tell you the truth, Charlie. I mean, this is basically.
To me, $5,000 is a lot of engineering. I'm just curious how we missed it. So I don't wanna miss it again.
No, I would agree with you. And I think that was a combination of also with the gas line. That's part of the reason why the engineering costs are as much, trying to make that move as well. Because doing this change, the gas line comes into play. So it's more than just the handicap ramp.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes, Dave?
It's along the same lines. It's just trying to understand, did the engineer or consulting engineer design it incorrectly the first time, and they're being paid again to design it correctly?
I am not 100% certain. I know it was designed initially. I don't know whether or not this is being done again for them. I mean, I know that this, excuse me, and I apologize for not having the answer on this, but I know that basically this had come up, I mean, in my estimation, was not expected. So to have them being paid twice, I'm not 100% certain.
Yeah.
Isn't this an existing cut in front of the YMCA?
It is currently existing.
Yeah,
That's
so
already
that
there.
could be from whenever. We don't know when that was done, right?
No, I do not know when it was initially done, no.
All right.
The design should consider the entire, whatever's going to be modified in that area, and if that encompassed the area that they're part of their design, they accounted for that in their design, and now they're saying, oh, well, we got to design it again. Why are we paying twice for the same design of something that should work the first time?
I can go back and talk to them about that. I have no problem with that if you'd like me to do that.
And
If you,
no.
I mean, I think it's certainly worth the question to them. I mean, they're the engineers. I mean, if they're an engineer, I would expect them to, do their job. And if it's and encompass the whole street, understandably that curb cut was there already. But I would think hopefully they would know, if the slope is not right for ADA, they would know that as engineers. But so yeah, I think it'd be good to have that question answered moving forward.
On the same vein, will that increase the construction costs considerably? Do we know?
I believe it is extending it a little bit, but I know at this point too, with moving the gas line, the gas company is actually working with the contractor to help in the movement of the gas line. So we're going to be paying for the changes to the walk itself, but not necessarily the moving of the gas line.
Okay.
Do you want to hold off making a
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering.
determination? We can put it on the next.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
So we do have a motion on the floor. What do we do? Just table it for now? Can we have a motion? What do we do with the
You're
motion?
going to withdraw the
Okay.
motion.
Withdraw? All right, so
It would be made by Brendan and seconded by David.
I will make a motion to withdraw the previous motion.
we have a second on that?
Second.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Thank you. Yeah, so, Chris, we're just looking, to kind of talk to the engineers or Denise, whoever, and just, if this is something that they, should have caught, I don't know, we're going to pay them again. I would agree with that, so probably just a few more answers we're looking for, that's all.
Yeah, I will connect with Jim Mahoney and the engineer. Jim was working closely with them, so I will get some answers for you.
Appreciate that. Of course. Thanks. Okay, town manager's report. Denise.
Just a reminder that next week is the public hearing on the charter revision change here in the town chambers. It is at 6 p.m. So it begins at 6. It's a little earlier than our usual, so just a reminder. There are copies of the proposed charter and the changes available on the town's website and also in the town clerk's office for anyone who is so inclined to take a look at that. In the management report under the calendar reminders, Kate is pointing out an error. It does say special town council meeting for July 12th for that. It's not a special town council meeting, so there is a possibility to put other things on the agenda if, no.
I'm sorry, what it is, let me explain because it was
Okay.
a little confusing. In your charter, your calendar reminders, you have charter revision public hearing at 6 o'clock. That's part of your special town council meeting.
Oh, all right.
Okay, so it's going to be one meeting at 6 o'clock, whatever time it gets over with, it gets over with. You're not having a second meeting.
Right.
Okay, it's all
Yeah,
part of the
it's
same
just the
meeting.
public hearing.
Yes, it's going to be the public hearing, and I did put an item on there. You'll see it on your agenda that I handed out to you, that you can discuss it, any of the comments or anything. All right, so that you can do some of it that night. You can also do some of it on the 19th if you want to. Okay.
It is starting earlier, so you'll have a little time if you
Yeah.
need to discuss anything that evening, or you can discuss it at a subsequent meeting.
19th.
Are you comfortable with all that? Is
Yeah,
that okay?
I mean, that's fine, yeah.
All right, good.
The walking competition for
Thank you.
June is
Thanks.
over. The announcement is going to be this Thursday in Rocky Hill at 6:30 during the intermission of the concert that they have in their Elm Street Park. So I'll let everyone know next week who is the winner of the walking competition. And then finally, I have some good news and I have some bad news, and I think that everyone knows the bad news, but the good news is that we will, on July 22nd, have Jennifer Ochoa joining us as the Director of Community Recreation and Park Services. She'll be joining us from the town of Bolton, and she will be replacing Jim Capides, who left at the end of April, I think it was, or beginning of May. Even though he keeps coming back and helping with things that we ask him to do. But she is currently the Senior Center Director at the town of Bolton. She also has some community service experience as well as some recreation experience in her past with the Special Olympics and other things, and I think she'll be a welcome addition to that area. Obviously, the bad news is that on July 22nd, I just had filled one position, and now I have another opening because our finance director will be leaving us for the town of Bloomfield. In his last day of work will be July 22nd. So it's with a very heavy heart that that announcement is made, but I think everyone on the council already knows, but it is general news, and it's going to be a good day and a bad day. So that's it.
Unfortunate, thank you. Special committee reports? Any special committee reports coming up? Any schedules? No, hearing none, we'll move on to Counselor Communications. Go ahead, starting with you, Christian. Any communications, anybody down the line here?
The only thing I want to say
Yes.
is with the tennis courts, I noticed, I went to a couple track meets this year. My son's on the track team. And, you know, the tennis courts are in bad shape, but they should be blocked off and nobody should be on there because they had youth lacrosse teams, little 8, 9-year-old, 10-year-old kids running around with their soft spikes on and the cracks are this big. So I don't know if it's a liability for the town to have, you know, the kids running around. Who else would need is a broken ankle or getting sued over that, so.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Just let me know.
Okay.
Okay, any other communications? Hearing none, we'll move on to the acceptance of minutes. So we have the June 21st, 2016 minutes.
Okay. Move to accept the June, what was it, first one?
21st.
June 21st, 2016 Town Council meeting minutes?
As amended.
As amended, because I
Oh,
did-
that's right, yeah,
I did
yeah,
find
actually
a
wrote it
mistake, and I don't know if everybody knows about it. I wasn't here, but I did read it.
Make the motion, can't vote on it, I
Tom
guess,
Reed.
right? Can't make the
The
motion.
the discussion of the police station listed Tom Reed from AZ Corp. He's really from the PBC, from the town of Berlin, so.
Right, so that'll be
Thank you.
corrected.
Okay.
All right, so we have a second on that?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Well, one, I guess
And you
one
abstain.
abstention.
Abstain.
Okay, great, motion carries, and the June 28th.
Move to accept the meeting minutes from the June 28th Town Council meeting.
Okay, all those in, second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain.
One abstention, thank you. Motion carries, and move for adjournment. A motion on that.
Move to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, so adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.